What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Geeks and Goblins, featuring the one and only OG Goblin and my lovely, wonderful, fantastic, as always, co-host, Utopian Revolt. How are you doing today, sir?
Man, it's been a weird day. Some Jamaican dude threatened to end my life before my birthday.
What?
But yeah, it's been a good day outside of that, I think.
Bombaclot, you can't just start the conversation off with that. We might need a little context and for you to move over to the left a little bit, but we might need some context on that. Do you care to share your life-ending
Oh
adventure?
man.
What the hell?
It was just there was this client that was just frustrated. He had some sort of problem with his iPhone. He wanted a replacement, like a stat. He'd been to already like a couple different stores, worked with Apple on the issue and all that stuff, and it was obvious that he had some sort of anger issues. When we were trying to help him out but couldn't get him an immediate answer, he just started pacing around, and then he asked us if we had anything that he could break because, quote, I don't want to punch a human. Um, but then I'm just there trying to help him out, and he asked me all these questions like, "Hey, so when's your next birthday?" I'm like, "Oh, it's in a month." He's like, "Oh, that's soon. You help me, and we'll make sure you get to it." And yeah, man, it's that's the day. That's the day it's been. That's the day it's been.
I don't have an immediate response to what you just said to me.
Oh man.
I hope I hope management was aware that a threat was made against your life. It's so
I did make them aware of it, but I didn't really feel like he was being serious. He just seemed to be frustrated, and I understand why. But yeah, that was an interesting interaction to say the least.
interesting is the word we'll use. Interesting is the word we'll use. Well, I'm happy you're alive. I'm happy you're well. Uh, Jamaicans, love them. You gotta love them. It's always an experience, an interesting one. Um, how do we
Oh
just
my
begin the
God.
show like that? How do we just how do we go into our weekly roundup? Well, I'm happy
Um,
you're here with us.
yes, sir. Yes,
I
sir.
apologize to the audience if I look a little unmelanated today. My camera decided to just be crazy, just be all types of crazy before we started, so I'm looking a little paler than usual. So yeah, but I guess my problems aren't that big in the grand scheme of it all.
Oh
let's
my
just
God.
let's just jump right into it, shall we?
Yes,
Would
sir.
you like to
Yes, sir.
start us off with this week's
Yes,
weekly
sir.
roundup, sir?
So, the first item on the board, we have Sony and Lego both investing $1 billion in Epic Games, all because of the metaverse that Epic Games is creating now. And Sony has a little bit more than just the metaverse. But yeah, that's the first topic of the day.
I don't know, man. Like, for if we never talked about it before, we do our little draft to pick our weekly roundup topics. 5 minutes, one topic each. 1 minute per topic, pardon. And this one was like so weird on the edge for me. I was like, Sony Lego $1 billion investment into Epic. Sony like that's kind of that's big. So first off, shout out to Epic. They just seem to be rocking and rolling when you really think about it. They've got so much going on for them. And then just to receive $2 billion out the gate, I'm very interested to see what Lego is going to do here. And I'm going to go ahead and toss this into my little pool of potential Sony, not acquisitions, but big Sony moves that I'm happy to see.
Yeah, I think we're going to be having a pretty Sony-centric episode today. It's interesting to see them getting in on Epic Games the way that they have. We've already seen a partnership with a lot of these Sony PC releases. I know that most of them are launching exclusively on Epic Games. If I'm not mistaken, someone can feel free to correct me on that. But it just seems like Sony is investing more and more in PC gaming, and hopefully that means one day um, we'll get day one for first party games on PC. I don't think that's going to happen, which is why I paused for a second, but hopefully we do see that.
let's be real. This is all about us getting Lego cars in Rocket League as well as the Twisted Metal vehicles. That's what this $1 billion really boils down to. Moving on to our next topic. The Witcher 3, PS5, and Xbox Series X, the next-gen versions, are delayed as CD Projekt Red takes over development. What do you have to say about that there?
Man, it's interesting. The reason why they did this is because Saber Interactive, the third-party studio that was basically outsourced to do these versions, they are based in Russia, and that's essentially why all of this happened.
Yep.
So interesting to see how that entire predicament in the Eastern Hemisphere is kind of just bleeding over to just culture everywhere. Really, it's fascinating to see. Hopefully, we get those versions soon. CD Projekt Red has confirmed that it's not in development hell. So this just seems to be a response to the Russia-Ukraine ordeal.
Absolutely. And just to riff off of that, I brought it up maybe a couple of episodes ago, man. Do we need a Witcher 3 next gen version?
I mean, okay, so they're going to be apparently updating graphics, updating the lighting engine, of course, increasing or decreasing load times. But apparently, they're also going to be adding content from the Netflix show. So that's going to be interesting to see what form that takes. I'm personally holding out hope for a fully voice acted and fully modeled Henry Cavill version of Geralt.
A dreamer as always. A dreamer as always.
It's not going to happen, but come on, CD Projekt Red. That'd be so dope.
I mean, it doesn't hurt to dream. It doesn't hurt to dream. But fully, I'm not sure they've got the coin in the coffers to toss a coin at Henry Cavill. I'm not sure that they can pull it off. Maybe we can get a in-game soundtrack for toss a coin to your Witcher. Maybe that's what we might get. But otherwise, I'm not too sure about the Cavill. I'm not sure about Superman himself.
I don't know, man. We've seen Keanu Reeves working with CD Projekt Red, and they're raking in the money from the Polish government with a lot of the grants they're getting. They apparently have surpassed 30 million sales for The Witcher 3, and they've surpassed 18 million sales for Cyberpunk. So it's not too unlikely, but it's very much a dream.
Maybe. Would you like to lead us into our next topic, sir?
Yes, I'm going to be completely demolishing the pronunciation of this name, but the Ghost of Tsushima movie has landed its writer in Takashi Dosher.
Takashi Dosher. What do we know him from anything? Is this just is this some fresh blood? I'm not too sure. The name doesn't ring any bells to me. I'm heading to his IMDb right now because this is what I do. This is just what I do in that world. And I gotta say, I'm looking at it. There's nothing here really that brings excitement to me.
Right. I think the biggest credits to his name is some sci-fi romance that released in 2019 called Only. There's a Hulu exclusive movie called Still, and an ESPN documentary called The Fighting Chance. So as far as big name projects as this, it does seem like he's new blood, and that's going to be very interesting to see how that plays out.
Now, with that said, I don't think that there's anything inherently wrong with there being new blood at all.
Oh, right.
I am all here for it. A lot of the original MCU was new blood, especially when you look at like Thor, Chris Hemsworth. Granted, he had been in a couple of projects beforehand, but he was far from what I would say is a household name. But either way, a lot riding on Takashi's shoulders here. Ghost of Tsushima, that's a platform, man. That's a very beloved IP coming from Sony. If you do that dirty, if you do that wrong, he's gonna have some very angry fans on his shoulders.
I was gonna say that I think Sony would make the right decision, but they also made Morbius, so I don't know.
That's true. That's true.
Verdict's still out on that.
They really can't be trusted. That's really all that boils down to. They can't be trusted.
Oh my god.
Oh my goodness. Oh, moving on. Star Wars Vision continues with new shorts this year. Now, that's a surprising welcome one for me. Frankly, didn't
Yes.
expect that. Did not expect to see more Star Wars Visions. Not to say I didn't love what we got, but
Right.
I don't think the reception was overall abundantly positive, but I do know it's well liked amongst a big sect of Star Wars fans.
Right, and you can definitely count me in on that because each and every single episode had its own feel and charm to it. It was fantastic, honestly. It was like a breath of fresh air, something unique that we haven't really seen before in Star Wars. Um, I'm hoping that with the continuation, we get to see some sort of like sequels to some of the episodes from the first season. I do remember one in particular. It was about a lightsaber forge master,
Mm-hmm.
and that was my favorite of all of them. I know that the studio said that they've already written an entire like show or like movie script surrounding that story. So it's going to be cool to see if they have any continuations or if they're just going to start fresh.
I'm gonna throw this out here. One of my hopefuls. I want to see some Gundams with lightsabers. Which,
Oh,
I
dude.
mean, granted, Gundams technically already have lightsabers, so I mean, I don't think it's a stretch. You know what I mean? Give me the studio
Right.
that animated Iron-Blooded Orphans and just let them go crazy, let them go ham, and I will. I'm all on board. But man, Star Wars Visions left an impression on me. That first episode, oh my
Yeah.
god,
Oh, yeah.
it's just we're in a generation now where we're getting to see Star Wars in so many different mediums, and considering the influence that Japanese culture and Japanese media had on Star Wars, it's a breath of fresh air to actually see some Japanese animators and some Japanese storytellers step foot into Star Wars and really
Yeah.
put their mark back on the franchise.
Yeah, like you said, you touched on it a little bit. I mean, Japanese culture and films have played a large role in Star Wars, and we've kind of just come full circle now. So yeah, I'm excited to see Star Wars Visions for sure.
And would you like to lead us on to our final topic in tonight's weekly roundup, sir?
Yes, sir. And I want to make it clear to the Goblin gang that this was a particular favorite topic for one of your hosts, OG Goblin. New Need for Speed reportedly combining photorealism with anime elements.
Boom! I don't even know what that means. like, I don't even know what that means. But I'm excited. Oh my god! I think back to my childhood and Need for Speed Most Wanted, and I just get excited.
Yeah.
I just get excited. I'm sorry. I'm
Yeah.
sorry. It's a big topic
No,
for me.
I mean, you're right to be excited. I am a little hesitant because the last Need for Speed games have felt a little too cash grabby and microtransaction heavy to me.
Absolutely.
But that being said, sounds like Jeff Grubb is saying that the anime elements he kind of equated it to those car commercials where it's just real cars driving, but then there's like flames, like animated 2D flames coming out of the wheel. He said that that's the vibe that EA seems to be going for this new one.
I
So that sounds pretty sick, honestly.
it's hard to picture it, especially with that phrasing, right? The phrasing, photorealism with anime elements. Those two
Right.
things in my mind just it's so strange. And I have to take this second to point out the chat. Somebody said it, Initial D. I'm thinking Initial D. Initial D is what comes to mind, but like I don't know. Initial D mixed with some Need for Speed. Like I am fully on board. I've been waiting for a new Need for Speed game to fall in love with. If you know me, I am a customization whore. If you give me a game with deep customization options, I am all in. So Need for Speed has been
Yes.
one of my favorite franchises in that regard for years, and it's nice to see it potentially making a return. Hopefully, we see some good things.
Yes, hopefully, man. Hopefully. That being said, we have some bigger and greater things to talk about, arguably,
Big
but I
topics,
think no one will disagree with us.
big things.
Um, do you want to bring us in to this next topic?
Oh, well, what's there really to say? Short of Kingdom Hearts 4 has been announced. Oh man, listen, I have a peppered history with Kingdom Hearts. Super fell in love with it as a child. Of course, I mean, who wouldn't? Especially as a lover of video games, to see Disney introduced in that way. Super big lover of the original Kingdom Hearts. Huge lover of Kingdom Hearts 2. And then, the peppered history of all the games in between. Your mobile games and your handheld games. Leading into the long, long wait for Kingdom Hearts 3. A game that a lot of people said they wouldn't believe came out until they beat it. So, when Kingdom Hearts 3 came out, I think we can all agree that its reception wasn't 100%. Whether it was the wait or just the product that was received, the reception wasn't completely positive. But alas, here we are, less than, let's say a decade, because that's short for a Square Enix game. Less than a decade from the last game, here we are with an announcement for Kingdom Hearts 4, and I'm excited.
Man, yeah. I mean, I enjoyed Kingdom Hearts 3 for what it was. At this point, the story has become so convoluted. I already have a full-time job. I don't need another one in trying to decipher what's going on. But that being said, I love the characters. I love the interactions between the characters. I love the gameplay. The graphics for Kingdom Hearts 3 looked freaking great. And apparently Kingdom Hearts 4 is going to be running on Unreal Engine 5.
Yes.
So that's freaking impressive and exciting. Honestly, man, like, there's not really much to say. Some people are speculating that they saw a foot of what appears to be an ATST on Endor. If we get Star Wars and Kingdom Hearts, holy crap, I'm excited. I'm all the way in. Hell yeah, man.
I mean, it's hard not to, like, it's hard not to think that it's not gonna happen. I mean, it kind of has to, in my opinion. I mean, especially with the look that they've got going on right now, right? So, I mean, it has that, I don't want to call it photorealism, but it definitely looks a lot tighter in that regard than other Kingdom Hearts games have, and that may just be the world. But given the engine that it's going to be running on and what it's capable of, we're looking at an era where we could potentially see Sora interact with Luke Skywalker, Darth Vader, Captain America. There's so many possibilities there now, more so than I think there were previously. So, oh my God, it's going to be a great time regardless. What are some other hopefuls that you hope to see in Kingdom Hearts 4?
Okay, let's see. So aside from Star Wars and aside from Marvel, I know we've gotten this before. I think we've gotten it in multiple games. I mean, Tron. I think the Tron worlds in the original Kingdom Hearts games, they were some of the most unique levels in the game. And aesthetically, it's just so pleasing to look at. I want more of that. And I want them to, like, incorporate what the actual Tron verse is, like in terms of the light cycles, include that entire minigame. I want them to just, whatever they do, whatever worlds that they choose to do, I hope that they incorporate more of those worlds into the gameplay mechanics than the other way around, if that makes sense.
No, I absolutely follow. And I think to kind of riff off of that, Encanto, that would be an absolute vibe. Seeing some Moana. Lilo and Stitch, I think, is a franchise that has long been needed to come to Kingdom Hearts. That's just a personal feeling. And of course, bring us back to Nightmare Before Christmas. That's just who wouldn't want more of that? I always want more Jack and Sally, so I feel like there's always more of a story to tell in that world. I hate that we haven't gotten more of that. Big Hero 6, like, these are just the worlds that I want to see. I'm sure that there's a plethora. Let us know in the comments. Let us know on Twitter and on Discord. What are some worlds that you would like to see in Kingdom Hearts 4? That's just always going to be an intriguing topic for me. And on top of which, Unreal Engine 5. To think so many games are in development on that engine, man. What it could bring to Kingdom Hearts. Imagine they just go full photorealism.
Man, I mean, we kind of got to... So, the trailer that they showed off was running real-time in Unreal Engine 4. And that already looked really freaking good. So imagining what it would look like on Unreal Engine 5 with probably like higher resolution assets and that type of stuff, it's mind-blowing. I can't even imagine what that would look like. It's probably going to be something along the lines of like the original cinematics that we got, if not better than those. It's exciting stuff, man.
Oh, absolutely. We can't ignore in that announcement that they also announced a mobile game as well. Was it two mobile games or just the one? I always forget. They're both on mobile, I think.
They announced the finale for their current multiplayer game. I forget the name. I think it's like Union Cross Chain. It's hard to follow the
Yes.
Kingdom Hearts name.
Yes. Kingdom Hearts
Uh,
name. Yes.
right. So that one is essentially like a 2D animated, cutesy type of gotcha game, honestly. But they did also announce another one that looks like it's essentially the Kingdom Hearts 3 combat and visuals just on mobile phones, which it's pretty freaking cool. But I don't know why it exists. It's probably gonna have some like really crucial story elements in there for whatever reason. But it looks cool.
Well, as we know, the Kingdom Hearts story can never be told in just a single game. You have to purchase the latest iPhone as well as the Nintendo Switch Lite. Prepare to dig out your Game Boy Advance SPs. I myself am already ready to go. I've pulled it out. I'm ready to go
Oh
for
my
a
God.
potential Chain of Memories 2 to catch up on the story of Kingdom Hearts 5 before the release of Kingdom Hearts 4. Jokes aside, jokes aside, jokes aside. I'm not a. If you couldn't tell from my little ramblings there, and I'm sure I'm not alone. I'm not a fan of the disjointed storytelling. Especially, I think it did a little bit of a disservice to those of us who just had one console as a kid. You know, if I had the PS2, I was getting the story from the PS2. If you didn't have the fortune of having a mobile phone, or if you didn't have the fortune of having a handheld console, the Game Boy Advance SP, and other consoles of the like, you unfortunately weren't able to follow through with all the way through the story. So it left some strange story beats going into 2. I'm not really sure off the top of my head going into 3 if it left a lot of strange story beats, but I'm just really hoping. I'm hearing from our producer in the back, yes, it did. But I'm just hoping going into 4 that we're not going to run into too many hurdles here. I'm hoping that the most you're going to need is to beat 3. I just think they do their I think they do their storytelling, and I think they do a franchise that is in a lot of people's hearts a huge disservice.
Yeah, honestly, I think it's kind of crazy to think how massive Kingdom Hearts is as a franchise and how massive the following is when in reality it's been just like you've explained, where it's one platform gets a specific story and then the continuation of the story is on another platform. Not everybody has that money. That being said, the following is freaking huge. So I guess it's working. I mean, I don't know. Maybe that's why they keep doing it. But I think it's very optimistic. It's very Utopian Revolt of you to expect that we won't have some spin-off stories that are crucial.
Well, look,
I don't
I
know.
like to think that I take after the people that have heavy influence on me.
Oh man, that's sweet of you. No, but it's honestly crazy to think about. Something that's also crazy is seeing how the NVIDIA GeForce Games leak has kind of played out since 2021.
Yes.
Kingdom Hearts 4 was one of the games that was in that initial leak that NVIDIA said, "Oh, this is just for testing purposes." Okay, we totally believe you.
Oh man, look, if I've learned anything about don't trust what people say in the internet about business leaks, it's less of a 1 times out of 10 they're right, and tends to be more of about a 8.7 out of 10 times they're right. Look,
Yeah.
I'm looking back at this list and it's just hilarious to me, man. Just some highlights here. And just so everyone is a little bit clear, would you like to break down a little bit more on what the GeForce Now database leak was?
Right, right. So in 2021, there was a leak that basically came out of NVIDIA servers. People were able to see some placeholders, quote unquote, future games that might be on the service. So all the games that are on the list are essentially, quote unquote, confirmed for a PC release, at least a GeForce Now
Yeah.
release. But yeah, do you want to run us through the list of games?
Yeah, I'll just touch on some big ones that would probably, that we didn't expect, but are definitely coming down the pipeline. So on this leak were games like Gears of War 6, a potential new Fable, which we also now know is in the works. We are getting a new Fable. Let's see here. Final Fantasy IX remake, which is super interesting. Yep. Final Fantasy 16, which will be coming to PC later. Tomb Raider Anniversary, which was slated for 2021, but as I'm coming to learn with this, on that same list for Square Enix, Kingdom Hearts 4, anything could really truly be in the cards. Street Fighter 6, which was also confirmed recently. Monster Hunter 6, Dragon's Dogma 2, the Resident Evil 4 remake, which has been rumored for quite some time. Bioshock 2022, which we have also heard we're getting. Mirror's Edge, Ray Tracing Remaster, Titanfall 3, which is a huge one. Tekken 8, yes, which as a Tekken fan, we've been waiting a really long time for. Human Fall Flat 2, Crysis 4, Bayonetta 3, Catherine Full Body, Batman Arkham Knight Ray Tracing Remaster. I mean, the list is even deeper than that. I could go on. Injustice 3, XCOM 3, Mario and Rabbids. I look at this list now and I'm so hopeful for some of these things that we could be getting.
Yeah. Honestly, you announced some bangers, and I'm excited for every single one of them. But the ones that I'm most hopeful for, Titanfall 3 and Bioshock 2022. My God, I need Bioshock back in my life. And after you're playing a lot of Apex Legends, I need more of that Titanfall-esque respawn first-person shooter combat. I need more of that. I need a whole campaign built around that. Please respawn.
Absolutely. I'm looking forward to some of these fighters that are on here. We're talking Tekken 8. We haven't had a new Tekken since Tekken 7, so that's super duper exciting. I think one of the biggest games on this list that people have been screaming and chomping at the bit for, Injustice 3, Gods Will Fall. That story is continuously being told in the comics, and it's such an interesting premise. And they were both so well received, and they have their foothold in the fighting game world. So a lot of us have been waiting for an Injustice 3.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, honestly, it's crazy to see how Nvidia just kind of allowed all this to start happening. But I mean, Kingdom Hearts 4 is just proof that there's a little bit more than meets the eye to this type of stuff. It's definitely not just placeholders.
Oh yeah, no. And look, these leaks happen. These leaks happen all the time. And honestly, I'm of the opinion, of course, these developers and these publishers are going to be pissed at the end of the day. Someone's going to be like, hey, that guy over there that had the list, something must be done. But in my opinion, this level of hype, embrace the hype, especially in the video game sphere that we're in now, where we hype up games like Cyberpunk 2077, which is now good, but at the time came out as poop. Where we hype these things up that we have no idea how it's really going to turn out. Let the train get rolling, man. As far as I'm concerned, you tell people, let me just find a good one on the list. I don't want to say something like Sniper Elite 5. That's not going to be a good example of what I'm trying to say here. Let's just, you know what? Actually, yeah. We're talking like you tell people that after the leak that yes, Titanfall 3 is coming. As far as I'm concerned, that's hype, and that gets the investors going, man. They say, oh wow, people really do want to see this game. Let's get some more funds into this. Let's make this one pop. Like I'm of the mind, if any of the stuff that I'm working on in the background right now, wink wink, gets leaked, then hey, I'm going full board. Yes, this is happening. Right. Yes, this is what's going on. Yes, you guys need to get on the train. Give me the hype.
Honestly, man, you're completely right about that. The reason why I said it was crazy that this leak actually happened, it's because just the scale of it. The list of games that were leaked was, I think, over 18,000. Not 1,800, 18,000. And it's crazy because some of it is something we just talked about in the weekly roundup. Sony trying to partner up with Epic Games. A lot of the games were Sony games as well, like Horizon Forbidden West was on the list for PC. Gran Turismo 7 was on the list. Returnal, Demon Souls, Ratchet and Clank, Ghost of Tsushima. I don't think we've ever seen a leak of this magnitude.
No, absolutely not. I mean, I think we would I think there's some misses on here. Not misses in like the sense that but like, things that, as I like to say, don't get the needle turning. But yes, this is pretty big. This is a pretty damn big leak. These are some big titles on here. It's not just a bunch of Goat Game 2s. This is something that, you keep in the vault until somebody says, all right, you can press the button. But how something like this happened, I don't know. But again, I just think I think they should embrace it, man. We're seeing a good majority of this list we saw, a good majority of this list get announced within that time that it initially launched. So, stop playing false with us, man. Just tell us it's happening.
Oh man, speaking of that stupid needle, I say that with love and respect.
Uh-huh.
Speaking of that needle of yours, um, something that we've talked about in great detail in the past, in person and on Geeks and Goblins, Sony's speculative acquisitions. The
Yes.
what seems to be the end of the console wars and the beginning of the content wars.
Ooh,
Um,
I like that.
yeah, honestly, man, I think we're getting some big news soon. Jeff Grubb and Greg Miller have so Jeff Grubb of Grub Snacks fame and Greg Miller of Kinda Funny Games. They've been hyping up a big Sony acquisition coming very soon. And before all that dust settled from them hyping it up, we get the official announcement that Death Stranding has joined the PlayStation Studios umbrella. What are your thoughts on that?
My thoughts on that are we are going to get a Death Stranding sequel, or a prequel, or something, that will release on PlayStation consoles, and that is what they meant.
Okay. Okay.
I will be very, very short about that. That is what they meant. And I only say I'm going to be so short about it because Hideo Kojima himself has come out recently, I think it was in the last 24 hours, and said that Hideo, pardon for my producer in the background, Hideo Kojima has come out recently and said that Kojima Productions is and shall remain independent. For me, I believe that is a nail in the coffin for conversations on whether or not they will be acquiring Kojima Productions as well as Konami, which you so graciously messaged me so early in the morning about.
Hey man, early in the morning for you, late at night for myself. Okay?
Fair enough. Fair enough.
That...
There's an age difference there.
Oh man, I don't know. I feel like we can still see Konami being purchased by PlayStation. If not Konami, then their IP. I just genuinely believe that Sony has had a very cozy partnership with Kojima thus far. Yes, he has confirmed that Kojima Productions will remain independent, but that doesn't mean that he won't have some Sony exclusive projects coming up. And I think it's only natural, especially with Konami. Castlevania has blown up in the animeverse. Sony is very interested not only in video games, but the metaverse aspect of things, and also transitioning a lot of video game IP into anime and also into films and shows. So my speculation is that we will get some sort of Konami maybe outright purchase or IP distribution to Sony.
So here's what I have to say about that. I do believe that a Konami purchase is likely. I do believe that Sony could and would pull the trigger on Konami. I do not believe that is out of the realm of possibility. Let me say that now. Let me get that out of the way. I'm going to follow that up with, I do not think that there is anything, and I say that as I'm typing in Konami games in Google, just so I can run through, so that way my defense is solid on my part. Okay, I do not believe that there is a single game under the Konami banner that is enough to sell consoles. Let's make something abundantly clear about sales.
Ooh.
PlayStation will always sell in Japan because they will always sell. There is no Xbox in Japan. It is Sony and Nintendo. The console war does not exist. Consoles sell in the EU and in the US. Those are where the big numbers will always come from. And I'm going to have to apologize. But Metal Gear, PES Football, Castlevania, Super Bomberman, Silent Hill, to a degree, Contra, and Yu-Gi-Oh! And Suikoden, and Frogger, who has been dead now. We've stepped on Frogger years ago, and he's not getting back up. I'm sorry to say it, but these are not games that are going to make the American audience say, ooh, Sony.
I fully disagree. I fully disagree with 3 of those franchises. The rest, you have a point. But Castlevania, Metal Gear, and Silent Hill are gigantic IPs. And they have such a wide appeal, not just in Japan, but also in North America and in Europe. I think if you came out, or if Sony came out and they're like, hey, listen, we're remaking Metal Gear Solid 4. It's only on PS3, but now you have a fully next-gen version only on PS5. That's massive, man. That fits right under their umbrella. They are a blockbuster exclusive type of publisher at this point. And that fits in perfectly. I don't know, man. I don't know. I fully disagree with you on that one, but I do respect what you were saying about the rest of those franchises, like Suikoden, Frogger. Frogger is still alive, but it's on Apple Arcade now, so basically dead.
Basically dead.
But yeah, man. Castlevania, Silent Hill, and Metal Gear are classic franchises, and I think if they came back with a Sony budget, they would still be better than any narrative-based Xbox exclusive, in my opinion.
That is a very bold statement, sir. That is a very, very bold statement. And I'm a man of facts. I'm a man of facts, and I'm a man of numbers. And while you were speaking, not to say that I wasn't listening, but I took the time. To run the numbers a little bit here, just to kind of see not only the total sales, but the latest releases for Konami games. Just for the integrity of the conversation, separating the franchises out, because we don't want to get into franchise sales, but we do want to get into actual units on individual games.
Right.
The highest selling individual Konami game at 7 million units, released November 12th of 2001. And that is Metal Gear Solid 2. That is followed by Metal Gear Solid 4, Metal Gear Solid 5, Metal Gear Solid, Metal Gear Solid 3, and the list gets shorter and shorter and shorter as we go. And of course, I'm pretty sure what I'm looking at here in particular is physical sales. But, and mind you, that's also a total sales. I haven't even gotten into the North American numbers, and just even at a small glance at that. Oh, pardon. Let me rephrase what I just said. That was just units shipped. I haven't even gotten into units sold, and the highest number that I can even find in units sold, in North America, give me a second, I'm loading, was, wow, didn't even know they had, oh, that's not true, okay, I had to change my search algorithm really quick, it acted up and showed me some bullshit. The highest selling game that Konami has had in the States, mind you, in the States, was Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles in '89 with 3.38 million units. The closest thing they've had to that was Metal Gear Solid 4 in 2008, and the numbers are questionable, but under 3 million units. What that says to me, again, I'm sorry, these aren't games that the American audience is moving for. I'm not knocking the franchises. Let me get that out of the way. I have
Okay.
Much respect. So much respect for Metal Gear. Metal Gear Solid 4 is one of my favorite games. Even looking at some of these other games that they had here that I didn't even know I had respect for. Apparently, they had something to do with the Bug's Life for PlayStation. Love a Bug's Life. Great game. But I'm not. I don't wanna run out and get the next Konami game. I don't even know what the next Konami game is, and I think that's very, very telling.
Well, Konami as a video game publisher is pretty much dead. They're focusing on pachinko in Japan. Um, that being said, I have a question to pose to you.
Please.
Metal Gear Solid being touted by Sony themselves and their marketing behemoth as the next big PlayStation exclusive.
Mm-hmm.
You don't think that would do better than 8, 7, 3 million sales, at least in North America?
Maybe. I will give you a very hard maybe, and I'm gonna give you a very hard maybe. I'm gonna let you follow up with the rest. There, I'm gonna let you speak some more of your piece.
So, I just think that Metal Gear as a franchise is iconic. Even if people haven't played it, even if people haven't purchased the games, they know what Metal Gear is. They know who Solid Snake is. You know, the franchise awareness is there.
Yes.
Now, if you put Sony, who's already like they have everything down to a science at this point in terms of marketing, building the hype machine, building quality game engines, building quality narratives, and just quality games, period. I don't know, man. I feel like Castlevania, Metal Gear, and Silent Hill, all three of them not only fit Sony perfectly in terms of a video game standpoint, but also a multimedia standpoint. All three of those, Castlevania, like I mentioned, it's a very popular Netflix series at this point.
Yeah.
Metal Gear Solid, that would be fantastic if it transitioned to a show format. Same thing with Silent Hill as a horror movie or something like that. I just think it makes too much sense, especially with Konami not really making use of those properties anymore, for it not to happen. Now, whether it moves the needle or not, I did want to ask you this question.
Okay.
The needle has kind of popped up into appearance, at least in our discussions between you and I, after Microsoft purchased Activision. My question to you is, prior to Microsoft acquiring Bethesda and Activision, where was the needle? Who did it favor?
The needle in favor of just like as far as like excitement for Sony properties, or just was the needle really swinging more towards PlayStation or Xbox?
Yes, essentially like the needle between Xbox and PlayStation in terms of exclusive content.
In terms of exclusive content. Okay, there we go. I think
Right.
in terms of exclusive content, it was heavily leaning towards Sony, but
Yeah.
I don't think even for a lot of reasons that you would expect me to say that. So obviously Sony has had a stellar couple of years, pardon, with the PlayStation 4. We got Spider-Man, we got God of War. Like those were some heavy-hitting exclusive titles. With that said, Sony always kind of had its group of people that were Team Sony, always through and through. But I think in the last few years, we've seen the popularity kind of go towards third-party titles. Not to say that first-party titles didn't matter, but when we talk about success in video games, or when a lot of us have those conversations about video games, just like, you pop into work, you're talking to your coworker about what they were playing, or, oh, I'm going to pick this up, or I'm going to pick that up. The majority of that conversation tend to center itself around third-party, multi-platform, cross-platform, or just, wherever it lied, titles. So we're talking your Call of Duty, we're talking your Battlefield, FIFA, Madden, 2K, Rocket League, Valorant. Well, those are, getting into the PC exclusives is a whole separate thing, but you get the idea of what I'm trying to say, I hope. I don't think the conversation of the needle really existed until Microsoft pulled the trigger. And so that's kudos to them, because I do think in their own way they're bringing back the console wars. Because they're getting they're putting us in a position where, we like it or not, unless you're playing on PC, you are going to have to choose. It's inevitable. You are going, if you want to play Call of Duty, you can't, somewhere down the line, you're going to have either a PC or an Xbox. And it's not like how it was before when Call of Duty 2 was on the Xbox 360 and it was super popular, and then it ended up on PC, and then it ended up everywhere, right? We're talking about, we're going into a generation where, frankly, we might not see Call of Duty without some serious money investment from Sony on a PlayStation ever again. So Microsoft really caused this conversation of where the needle lies, and they're definitely bringing back what's inevitably going to be a console war where, you know, you're going to see people choosing between, on Christmas, Mom, I don't know, do I want the Xbox, do I want the PlayStation, can we get both? No, Jimmy, we can't get both. Like, we're definitely going back to that, in my opinion. So yes, I think the needle kind of lied in the middle. There was no need to have the conversation without exclusives, and if the conversation is purely about exclusives, the needle was on PlayStation's side.
Yeah, those are all good points, honestly. It's true. I think you're absolutely right. Things have been leaning more and more towards third party, but I did pull up a list here of the best-selling PlayStation 4 games.
Okay.
So here are the top five. I'm gonna limit to those. Number one, God of War with 19.5 million copies sold. Number two, Uncharted 4, A Thief's End, 16 million copies sold. Number three, Marvel Spider-Man, 13.2 million sold. And then number four, Witcher 3 Wild Hunt, 10.8 million sold. And Horizon Zero Dawn is fifth with 10 million. It's actually tied with The Last of Us Remastered. So that list leans pretty heavily towards exclusives. And we're talking about just raw numbers, units sold, right? Copies sold. So I think in terms of just exclusive content, even to this point, I think Sony still has a stranglehold in terms of those blockbusters that people are wanting. Just that 1 or 2 weeks of playing through a narrative-focused game, getting through this really cool story with amazing graphics, with controller features that you're only going to be able to find on PlayStation 5 with a DualSense. I don't know, man. I think Sony has been making the right moves. They have been also diversifying, trying not to not trying to fall behind too much with their acquisition of Bungie, for example, which is freaking massive. I think they don't need to do much. I don't think they need to go for a Ubisoft. I don't think they need to go for an EA. I think all they need really is just to bolster up their properties. And getting a company like Konami and then maybe working with Kojima on Metal Gear 6, for example, that could be massive. I genuinely believe that can take the hype machine away from Xbox, at least temporarily.
I don't know, man. I don't know. That's bold. While you're talking, I was also kind of taking the moment to look at this list. Correct me if I'm wrong. You were on Wikipedia.
Yes, correct.
I'm taking a moment to look at that list, and when it comes to the exclusive game, and where 2013 was really the PS4's life start. Mm-hmm. So when it comes to that exclusive list, it starts to fall apart a little bit after a certain point. So I mean, even in its top 5, one of those games is multi-platform. And not to take away from it, the majority of this list are PlayStation exclusives. Let's be clear about that. But I'm looking at potential acquisitions here, and I'd want to pick some of these up. So and to add to that, I also took the time to Control F Konami, and they have one game in this entire list. I'm not gonna let this go. I just gotta let you know I'm not gonna let this go. Ubisoft is a buy. Team Ninja. I always say that. Not Team Ninja. Platinum Games is a buy, and honestly, yes, Team Ninja is a buy. Sucker Punch. Yeah. I mean, they actually already have Sucker Punch, so I don't know where I was going with that. Square Enix is a buy. CD Projekt Red is a buy. Rockstar, never gonna happen, but is a buy. EA is a buy. I think Sony is going to put themselves in a very, very, very tough corner to get out of if they do not do something akin to the Bethesda, akin to the Activision Blizzard purchase. I think that is inevitable. They have taken a corner of such an interesting cut. And, you know, the Activision Blizzard purchase alone would have been like okay. Like, that makes sense, right?
Right.
Kind of. That makes sense. Call of Duty, they're heavy into the esports scene, so Call of Duty, Overwatch, and everything under those umbrellas. That makes sense. That makes absolute sense. But Bethesda, that was the buy for me that was a little bit like, hold on. They're trying to do something different at Microsoft. They're not trying to play ball. They're not trying to play ball at all. And this brings me back to those early Xbox days, because Oblivion was originally just on Xbox and PC. You weren't picking up Oblivion on on PlayStation initially. Like that was something that made me very jealous as a kid. That's something that was very interesting to me, because I'm like, okay, they're not just buying these competitive multiplayer platform games, which you would expect from Xbox, considering the popularity of Xbox Live. They're picking up studios that focus on single player content. So they finally heard the rumors. They finally heard the memes of the whole, Xbox Smash Brothers is just going to be 20 different colors of Master Chief. Like, they finally heard that meme and they said, oh shit, like, we need to offer something for everyone. So my concern for Sony's just going to sit back and just try to rely on their exclusives. And those numbers are good. We're looking at tens of millions of units sold across the board. The numbers are good. And I think Sony could survive this. This definitely isn't a Sony is going to get bullied out of the market conversation. But to compete without games like Call of Duty, without games like Overwatch, they got to do something, man. And I'm hoping that this $1 billion that they put into Epic Games eventually turns into an acquisition of some sort. I think Epic Games would be the big buy for them. I love Ubisoft, I love everyone else, but that would be the buy.
That would be massive. That would send shockwaves throughout the entire industry, because all of a sudden the Epic Games store on PC is a freaking PlayStation store on PC. And yeah, honestly, man, I think you've done it. You've solved the console wars here.
I wouldn't say that much.
Taking Fortnite under their umbrella, taking Rocket League under their umbrella, taking the Unreal Engine, the creation tools under their umbrella. I think you're onto something, and I think you had a great point. Microsoft is diversifying their portfolio of games. They're not just focusing on those dude bro multiplayer games anymore. Whereas Sony, it does seem like they are doubling down on those exclusives and those blockbuster single player games. They did diversify a little bit with the Bungie acquisition, but it's not going to be anything like Call of Duty, that zeitgeist, right? The only thing that I can really see them doing in terms of their multiplayer department is just getting some of their current studios like Sucker Punch to be working on multiplayer games as well. And we've heard rumblings that the new factions that they're making for The Last of Us Part 2 is going to be a standalone game. So I think within the next 2-3 years, we are going to start seeing more multiplayer games from Sony to kind of battle that Activision Blizzard acquisition.
Absolutely. And just to continue to riff off of this really quick before we go on to our break, just to riff off of this really quick, because I feel like the conversation about acquisitions and numbers tends to get a little pushed aside for gamers that really aren't concerned about the numbers and the like. And I feel like the importance of that gets shoved under the rug. Two things I want to say about that. One, these are still businesses. These are games for us, but these are still businesses. Their focus is on making money. So even to get into the like Konami part of it, not to shit on Konami, this is literally just kind of like from a statistical standpoint, from numbers, right? So I brought up if they bought Epic Games. As of 2019, and this is just from those numbers, as of 2019, God of War brought in $500 million in revenue for Sony. That is absolutely ridiculous.
Yep.
The same year, Fortnite Mobile bought in 450. $50 million dollars shy. Next year they did 1.1 billion, so they doubled the revenue of God of War that year. And that's just mobile. In 2019, Fortnite did 3.7 billion. Like, I'm not gonna pull up Konami because this isn't about Konami. This is just about the importance of these figures for people. I could pull up Call of Duty, I'm sure, and probably find something ridiculous as far as numbers there, but Microsoft made these purchases for a reason. Because they are attempting to accrue more revenue. That is a given. They will do that with exclusives, especially exclusives like Call of Duty. Everyone that wants to play it will flock to PC and will flock to Xbox. Right now, Sony's biggest seller for 2019 on their best-selling games list brought in $500 million. Yep. Call of Duty brings in that, if not more, especially in units sold, SKUs sold. Fortnite, across the board, brings in more. My concern for Sony is that they are going to allow Microsoft to swoop in and pick up an Epic, or pick up a Ubisoft, or pick up somebody else like that, and they will be solely reliant on exclusives. Exclusives sell consoles. They do not keep them alive.
You're absolutely right, especially in this new day and age where things are diversifying from just one single platform to a multitude of platforms. That being said, I think Microsoft has kind of they're in a corner right now. I don't know if they can make any big acquisitions like a Ubisoft or an EA or anything of the sort. They already have the antitrust lawyers coming after them on the Activision Blizzard stuff.
Absolutely.
There are some rumblings that deal may not go all the way through. I don't think it's going to happen. I think they are going to end up getting Activision Blizzard. I just don't know if they would be able to make another big acquisition like that. Okay. And that's where I think that Sony is not too far behind at this point, if we're talking about the needle analogy again. And I think they have much more room to catch up than Microsoft has to run away.
That's fair. I'll give you that. I will give you that. I actually think that was well put. I don't think there's too much to say, too much else to really put on top of that topic.
Right. No, I agree.
Any closing notes on the topic before we go to a short break?
Honestly, just for the hell of it, Sony, buy Ubisoft. I want my Assassin's Creed games to be good again. Not that the last ones haven't been. I'm just tired of how big they are. Please, just buy Ubisoft.
Oh, yeah. And they're only going to get bigger, too.
Oh, my God.
Oh, Jesus. They're only going to get bigger. If I had any closing notes on the topic, Sony, stop fucking around and buy something that matters.
Oh, my God.
And with that, we're going to be right back. We're going to go to a 5-minute break. We will see you all at 10:36. Don't go anywhere. When we return, we'll be talking about the WB buyout from Discovery and what that means for the DCUU, as well as recapping and reviewing Episode 3 of Moon Knight, featuring Steven with a V. Ladies and gentlemen, do not go anywhere. We shall return shortly. Just shortly. In just a second. Just a second. And ladies and gentlemen, we are back from our very short break. How you feeling, Utopian?
Feeling good, man. I'm feeling good. I'm excited to be talking about some DC stuff and some Marvel stuff.
Oh, look, moving into like, we still gotta figure out a name, right? Like,
Yeah.
and on our little board here, we have it separated as the geeky and the goblin-y. Maybe not the goblin-y, maybe not the goblin-y, but something like that, right?
Right.
But moving into the goblin-y for now, as we'll call it. For those who are not familiar, Warner Brothers has been bought out by Discovery, of all people. If there was anything that I didn't expect to hear, I don't know if maybe I heard about it before and I just like kind of blanked out. But yes, Warner Media was purchased by Discovery for $43 billion. Oh, that's hefty, man.
Yeah.
And with that, a lot of things fall under that banner now. But specifically, what we are going to be talking about today is DC and what this buyout means for DC, especially in lieu of a couple of announcements. What are your thoughts so far on
Oh, man.
this random buyout? At least random for me, anyway.
It's funny that this happens after our discussion last week on episode 5. Um, I think that this is only going to bring good things to the DC cinematic universe and also just the DC brand as a whole. Um, we touched on the fact that it seemed like the DC brand has been mismanaged for a couple of years at this point. It seemed like there was no general direction of what they wanted to do, where they wanted to go. Um, I think with this, we are going to start seeing a little bit more of the Marvelification of DC. We're going to start seeing some people being brought up to be the Kevin Feige of DC. I think we're going to start seeing a more cohesive vision for at least the movies. I did hear a report that they want to focus on more movies like The Joker and
Yes.
the Batman instead of the Justice League instead of Batman versus Superman type of flicks. And I think that's only good for the brand, man. That they don't need to be Marvel. You don't have to have these huge entourage movies. You can do that naturally. And I think we've seen that with those two movies in particular. And the fact that they're alluding to wanting to do more of that, that just gets me excited, man.
Now, you see, it's funny to me that you said that they don't need to be Marvel, but the same report that we're talking about says that the board over there at WB Discovery wants a more Kevin Feige-like leader.
Right.
Now, I do believe that is taken out of context a little bit. I think right now, especially if you're on that side of TikTok and Twitter, social media, I think the misconception right now is that they want to fully mimic the MCU, but to say something like they want a Kevin Feige-like leader as well as they want more stuff like Joker directly contradict each other. The Joker and the Batman are character pieces, first and foremost. They are meant to be cinema, not, this film-going spectacle that superhero films have turned into. So I think those things are in direct contradiction of each other. So with that said, I think by saying a Kevin Feige leader is to have somebody with a vision for what it all could be, not necessarily, hey, we want you to do exactly what the MCU does. They want someone to take the reins, actually.
Right. And that's the biggest thing I took from that quote specifically. I think that they are going to be focusing more on character pieces. I just think that they've been wanting for a while, DC, the production studios, they've been wanting a figurehead like that. They tried very much with Zack Snyder, and I don't know Zack Snyder ever really fit that bill. He's very much good for those kind of very fun summer breezy blockbuster movies that are all about action, not necessarily about the narrative, the plot, the characters, or anything like that. So I don't know, man. I think this is only going to be good things for the DC just whole brand.
Well, I want to be hopeful. But my question would be how much of that WB board remains,
Yeah.
Studio interference is always a thing, but besides that, I mean, like, I just hope that there's good enough fresh blood there that says, hey, we've got these wonderful character pieces in Joker and Batman. I think both have their flaws, but for everything that they are, they're very well received by the fans, and they're also very well received by the critics in different ways than the MCU was. MCU is received well from the critics in a way that it is a franchise that has now existed for over a decade, and it is respectable in its range, it is respectable in its performances, and it can be reviewed as such. Whereas the Joker and the Batman, people are having conversations about these movies in best picture categories, best acting categories. These are heavy hitting pieces of cinema. So to say they want more like that, I'm not opposed. Like I would absolutely love that, but not for all of the characters. I'm not sure the Flash gets a Joker or Batman-esque film. You know what I mean?
I feel like it wouldn't necessarily be the same tone. It wouldn't be as gritty. It wouldn't be as dark. But I feel like it can very much be more grounded to reality in a way that we really haven't seen other than the Joker and the Batman. If you think about the Marvel side of things, everything is so over the top. Whereas these two movies that we keep talking about have been just more of a realistic side of the superheroes and villains that we've seen. And I think having that vision overall for the entire cinematic universe, I think you can have a lighthearted Flash movie that is still more grounded to realism.
I want to say I agree with you. I want to say I agree with you. And to a large degree, I do. I guess it's the comic book fan inside of me that's just kind of like, no, I'm done with the gritty realism. Even with I think with the Joker, it made sense. I think the Joker, it makes sense, right? So we're looking at a character that, for all intents and purposes, outside of having dropped into a vat of acid and is insane, criminally insane, heavily criminally insane, is just kind of a dude. He's a dude at the end of the day. But the Batman is where things have always been very iffy for me from a grounded standpoint, right? So there is that grounded story. 100%. There's definitely that grounded story. Batman is just a very well trained, peak human condition dude, right? With a lot of money and a fancy suit and a fancy car and a lot of fancy tech. So, yes, you can definitely flip that. And he fights people like the Riddler, who are also just dudes, just with, little enhancements here or there. But then you've got that other side to his character where he fights people like Killer Croc. He fights people like the Penguin. He fights people, Bane, comic accurate Bane, Man-Bat. There are areas there that step out of that realism. Mr. Freeze, who can also be done from a realistic take, but would honestly really fit better with what he can actually do, in my opinion. So I ask myself, like, okay, outside of Batman and, other DC heroes that are essentially just human, how do we tell a grounded, real story with Aquaman? How do we do that? How do we take Aquaman and turn it into Joker?
I think you focus on the human aspects, right? Because every single superhero, including the Man of Steel himself, have human characteristics that could be described as weaknesses. And I think we've seen that with the Joker. We've seen that with the Batman. They leaned very much into how vulnerable these gods can be. And I think it was in a previous episode of Geeks and Goblins, you had asked me if a grounded Justice League, I forget exactly what the phrasing was, but if a grounded Justice League could actually happen on the big screen. And I think the way to do it is just by focusing on the human aspects of these gods,
I guess my problem is seeing the human problems, right? So, and I think in that same conversation, I made a point that I always thought the Marvel characters were always more human, Superman is Superman, he is overshadowed by his feats, especially in the power scaling world and such like that. He may be the Boy Scout, but at the end of the day, he's overshadowed by the fact that he once snapped a galaxy into existence. I forgot what it was, but it was ridiculous. Batman is exceeded by the fact that he is the world's greatest detective and he is constantly always prepared for any situation, or if you give him enough prep time, he could stop an asteroid from hitting the planet or things like that. He is more than a man, and I feel like that has always been inherently the problem for me with Justice League stories. All of these characters are more than man at all times. They all of them are cracked. Every single one of them. The Flash is one of the fastest speedsters in media, just with what he's been able to do. Fiction, really. One of the fastest. Even with, I know Death Battle just did a Death Battle with Scarlet Witch versus Zatanna, and not to give away the winner if anybody is heavy into Death Battles like I am, but for all we know about Wanda Maximoff, for all we know about the Scarlet Witch, what she can do, she wiped out more than 95% of the mutant population with just the words, "No more mutants." She created her own reality based off of a TV show off of thought. For all of the things that we know that she can do, Zatanna, which I don't want to undermine by saying is the DC equivalent of Scarlet Witch, Zatanna is 100 times more powerful than her, which is almost incomprehensible. And that is my issue with DC heroes. I do not think they can all get the Joker Batman treatment.
So it may not be an exact one-for-one replica of those movies, but I do think that this current rendition of the DCEU that we have, it's a little too over the top. It's a little too. I don't know exactly what word it is. It feels too fake. It doesn't
Okay.
feel as natural as it probably could. And moving these heroes into a more natural environment where it makes a little bit more sense why they're as powerful as they are. It makes a little bit more sense as to what conflicts they have in a certain film or in a certain show. That's something that we've been missing aside from those two character pieces. And incorporating a little bit more of that into the wider range and roster of characters is something that I think would really benefit the brands.
So let me ask you this then, just based off of what you just said, do you think that don't you think that people want to see that kind of like cracked out, broken character that we've yet to really get? Like we know Superman's feats. I think obviously Justice League was the most cracked we've ever seen Superman, but don't you think people want to see that? Do you think that they should really? Don't you? I don't want to phrase this question incorrectly. I don't want to assume your thoughts. So just give me a second while I try to figure out how to properly formulate this. Are you excited by the prospect of a DCEU where they are just max? No Superman holding back. Superman fighting Doomsday. For real, for real. Like Batman at the ultimate detective level, this ultimate ninja, an actual Green Lantern. Like, does that excite you more or less than a, I don't want to, I feel like grounded is the wrong term, but for the sake of the conversation, than a grounded Justice League?
Man, that's a tough question, but I'm thinking I'm gonna say no, and
Ooh,
I can relate it to my experience with My Hero Academia so far.
okay.
If you would have gotten Deku from episode one being cracked, like you wouldn't have been as emotionally invested in his growth, and that's kind of what I want to see from this new DCEU. I want to be able to see these characters from the beginning when they weren't cracked, but eventually making themselves or working themselves up to the point where they are at that max level. I mean, the Batman, we both really loved that movie, and we were basically seeing what's the most amateur level of Batman that we've seen in a movie so far. And I think that's why it works so well. And we're excited to see the sequel because we want to see how he's going to grow as a character, how he's going to grow his abilities, his arsenal. And that's the thing that gets me excited. I don't think that having a DCEU where everyone is always at their max is interesting because ultimately it's not relatable and it's not something that you can, at least in my opinion, get emotionally invested in as much as the alternative.
So okay, then I'm going to raise you this question since you brought My Hero into it because I think this opens up the door for a very interesting conversation. I think My Hero benefits in that way for you in the fact that these were not established characters.
Right.
We did not we don't know really the extent at what Deku from the beginning is capable of any of these characters. We really don't know. I think honestly the only one that we really know for a fact like the limit is All Might. We know that All Might is the peak of that civilization's strength, and to some degree, I guess, All for One. But at the beginning, that's what we know. So just from a storytelling standpoint, right? Of course, if we got issue 2 of My Hero and it was Deku busting like everything, like full max One Punch Man, one punch, like no, what is happening? This is ridiculous. Now,
Right.
in context, same thing with the film, right? So now let's say we take this My Hero film, we've only gotten the one issue, and we get a movie out of it next day. And again, it's Deku just fully cracked. We're like, whoa, wait, pause, wait. Last we checked, bro didn't even have a quirk. Like, how did we get here, right? I
Right.
think that is a little bit of the difference now with comic book movies, specifically DC. And I say specifically DC because Marvel wasn't popular to the degree that it is now until Iron Man came out. We were
Right.
familiar with some of the characters. We knew your Blade. We knew your Hulk. We knew your Fantastic Four, your Spider-Man, XYZ, whatever. We knew them, but they weren't like... Marvel was always still kind of like the ugly stepchild of superhero movies. People knew Spawn more than they knew frickin' Iron Man going into it. DC is a whole separate beast. Superman's been around for a minute. A very, very hot minute. So we're talking about a character that we all understand. You know, a Superman origin story for us is similar to a Batman origin story. We know how it happens. He's the last son of Krypton. He was sent here and he was found in Smallville and he was raised with these strong American values and he's the Boy Scout. And we know that Superman is Superman. We know that story, right? In a lot of ways, I think that's the same thing that the Batman gave us, right? We know Bruce Wayne's story. We know how he becomes the Batman. We know this. He's already the Batman in the movie. He's still figuring it out, but he is the Batman. I think DC sets itself apart in such a way that so many people across age barriers and across cultural barriers, we know who Superman is. Superman is cracked. Superman is super strong. He is Superman. And I think that's something they even tried to do with the Superman Returns movies with Brandon Routh. Brandon Routh. I always forget, butcher his name. They just gave us Superman. They didn't give us the intro to Superman. They gave us Superman out the gate. Strong, doing what he does, stopping a plane midair. I think that DC kind of separates itself in that way that we can get that from them. That cut the bullshit. Cut the story. We know who they are. To a degree. Right. Not everybody, but to a degree.
I think if you want to make something that's engaging to a wider audience, you do need to have that emotional investment. And the best way to do that is to show growth and character development. So what I would be interested in seeing, if we're talking about Superman in a movie, I would be interested in not seeing his origin story, but seeing him at a same level that Bruce Wayne and Batman was in The Batman. Okay. Where he hasn't quite figured it out yet, but he is on his way there. That, to me, sounds much more interesting than seeing a movie, the nth movie, of him just kicking ass like always. Because you can start getting invested in the personal aspect of it instead of just the grand majesty of it all, the majestic, glorious battles. You can build up to that, and if you build up to that in a natural way, I think the payoff is just so much more rewarding than just having that from the beginning. I think about like Avengers Endgame. Some of these other characters were already well established and very popular with just a lot of people, but we were able to see how they came together, how they grew individually, but also as a group to ultimately take down this gigantic threat. And that's kind of what I want to see with the DC universe.
Okay, so with that, I'm gonna ask you. I'm gonna press you. I'm gonna press you hard. I'm gonna press you hard. 2 questions. 1, just give me a yes or no, and then we're gonna move on into it. Move into it. We're not moving on yet. We're moving into it. 1, do you think they are going to reboot the DCEU? Even past the Flash stuff that we're supposed to be getting, do you think they're going to reboot it completely?
I think they're gonna reboot it while still keeping certain films as canon. Very specifically the Joker and the Batman. I think that's going to be their building blocks for future movies. I think that Aquaman, I think the Flash movies, unfortunately, there's just too much against that current rendition of the DCEU. I don't see that being the future. But okay. I do think that we are going to get a sequel to the Batman and maybe a sequel to the Joker and just go from there.
Okay, second question. What do you think they should do from here? Give me Utopian Revolt's DCEU starting game plan. Go.
Damn, it's tough because I never really grew up much with DC, at least not the comics. I grew up with the animated cartoons, and I love them to death.
That's fine. That's great.
I think I think the best thing that you can do if you are Warner Brothers Discovery is start off with those movies I just talked about as the foundation and start introducing other characters in a very similar way. I think the logical next step would be the most popular superhero. I guess that's arguable, but I'm going to just say it outright. The most popular superhero of all time is Superman. I think if you introduce Superman to the mix and you give him a movie where he's still trying to figure things out, you start drawing people in. They're like, oh, what's going on here? We have a Batman movie where Batman doesn't necessarily know how to be Batman all the way yet. Now we have a Superman movie where he's still trying to figure things out. What's coming next? Then you start introducing the roster of characters and standalone character pieces. And once the characters are established in the current state that they're in, you start having partnerships, not necessarily huge ensemble or entourage movies from the outright. You don't have Justice League, or you don't have Batman versus Superman as the second movie of your freaking cinematic universe. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You build that up. You start having Batman and Superman together in their own movie with villains that you just throw in there, and then you start having Wonder Woman and Aquaman working together, and then you work your way towards this gigantic Justice League movie. I think that's the proper way of doing it, and just talking about it, I'm getting myself excited about something that I don't even know is going to happen the way I want it to happen. But yeah, that's my take on the DCEU.
Okay, are you ready to hear my crazy crackpot, I've probably been drinking a little too much Henny, take on what I think they should do given the Warner Brothers Discovery buyout?
Yes.
Before we move on to Moon Knight.
Yes.
This is what we do. In the Batman, you clearly see during Halloween night that you have two costume people dressed as Wonder Woman and Superman. Perfect. We have a year 2 Batman that exists in a world where Wonder Woman and Superman are already active. Make them the same age, but they started a little bit sooner. Early 20s. They started their early 20s. Let's say they're maybe 24, 25 right now, so they're seasoned. At least in the known world, right? Give us whatever you give us for number 2. That's fine. But give us a little bit of a taste of the Joker, right? Perfect. Before we get even into Batman number 3, we get our Superman, we get our Wonder Woman movie. Same year. Do whatever you want to do with them. Really do whatever you want to do with them. Make Superman fight somebody that's not Doomsday. Give us a Brainiac. Give us a Bizarro. Give us... Maybe not a Bizarro. Actually, give us a Bizarro. Screw it. The government got a hold of something. We got Bizarro. However they want to do it. Give us Bizarro. Wonder Woman, let her fight a real cheetah. Or let her fight... I always forget the witch's name. But let her fight that witch. Do whatever you want to do. Slowly introduce us to other little members of the Justice League. But do it on HBO Max, where the budget is there for it. Give us the Flash, give us Shazam, give us Aquaman. Honestly, maybe even give us the actors we already have, and just let us pick up from there. They don't need to explain it, just let us have it and just tell us it's a whole new universe. We go into Batman number 3, Batman Injustice. Joker kills Lois Lane. And that kicks off the entirety of the Injustice storyline. You don't have to go too crazy. Just give us the Injustice storyline and tell that story. They've become good friends somewhere in between. Maybe we see it in the Superman second movie. Maybe we see it, maybe we don't. Maybe in his third movie. I don't know. It's been going on for a couple of years. But let the Joker kill Lois Lane. And let it all pop off. Let it all just go crazy.
Ooh,
I think that could work.
I retract my vision. I want yours.
Don't retract your vision, right now. Don't do that. Don't do that. Your vision is solid.
God. Oh man, no, dude. But seriously, I feel like our vision's kind of aligned up until the point where you start introducing the Injustice side of things. I feel like after you introduce the Justice League, after you introduce that dynamic between the characters, you throw in the Injustice storyline, and that's essentially the Captain America Civil War of the DCEU. And it just, oh man, fucking chills right now. That's I like that.
It's never gonna happen, but I'm here for it. It's never gonna happen. It's never gonna happen. Oh
Oh
man,
man.
enough of this DC speculation. Warner Brothers Discovery. I end it with saying I hope good things. I hope good things come from this. Hopefully the cooler heads will prevail over there, and we get some good films. I'm gonna leave it at that. And we shall now move into our final topic of the night. You guys know how we do it. 3 weeks running now. We are moving into our Moon Knight episode 3 review. I think I kicked it off last time. Why don't you kick it off for us this time, Utopian?
I'm gonna kind of reverse it. I'm gonna reverse the way we've been doing it so far, and I'm gonna just say my impressions and my review score from the get-go,
Okay.
and then I'm going to spend the rest of this topic just explaining why. This is the best episode so far. This is 5 geeks out of 5.
Ooh.
I am so happy with this episode. I was a little kind of put off from the beginning, and we'll go into it, but it ended up it kept building and building. I'm like, whoa, they got my attention again. Whoa, this is like the best thing I've seen on Disney Plus. It was so good, man. It was so good. I want to hear your thoughts.
My thoughts, I don't think my thoughts could be any more similar to yours. A full 5 geeks, pardon, 5 goblins out of 5 goblins. I thought it was a perfect episode from start to finish. I think it's a landmark for Disney Plus television storytelling with the Marvel property. I think it's going to some very, very interesting places. And I think visually, from a cinematic standpoint even, it is astounding. There's nothing right now that I don't love about Moon Knight. And quick disclaimer, since we have gotten past our reviews, this is going into spoiler territory. So if you are here, I give you the next 30 seconds starting right now. To get the hell on out of here, we talk spoilers in this review. Return to this when you have seen episode 3 of Moon Knight. And now that the disclaimer is out of the way, 15 more seconds for you to run for the hills. And on my clock, spoiler warning. I gotta make a spoiler warning overlay that just crosses the screen as a text when we go into these topics, so that way people can run away and be afraid. Your 30 seconds is up. You've entered at your own warning. Moon Knight episode 3 review. Kick it off for us, Utopian Revolt.
Oh my God! So we ended up starting up the episode. It's been a little bit. A lot has happened since I watched this episode. Correct me if I'm wrong, but we started off in Cairo, in Egypt, and I remember we were talking about in last episode if it was a flashback or a time skip. It very much seems to be just a little time skip.
A baby skip.
Oh man. I think you'd be better off explaining the beginning of the episode, because I remember being very disappointed, especially with the chase sequence, to the point where I tried to erase a little bit out of my mind that I think it was a little too successful. So you take over.
That's fair. I do remember you saying you weren't a big fan at the very beginning. So we opened the episode up with Mark chasing down some dudes in Cairo. Actually, let me run it back a little bit more. I'm sorry, I got ahead of myself. We open up the episode with Layla. I always forget whenever I start talking about her, whether it's Layla or Lila. I want to say Lila for some reason. We open up the episode with Lila getting a passport from a family friend who we find out was trained by her father to forge passports and the like. So we do get a little bit of a backstory there on, her dad and how who he was to her and kind of what happened to him a little bit. But we move past that into Mark chasing down some dudes in Cairo trying to get information. And I'm sorry, I skipped another beat. It's all flashing back to me really quick. We see Harrow locating Amit's tomb.
Yeah.
We see Harrow locating Amit's tomb. That's where we kicked into. So that is where we picked up at the beginning of this episode. Now on to Mark. Mark is chasing down some dudes in Cairo, trying to figure out where Harrow's tomb is, where Harrow is, where Amit's tomb is. And this is the most that we've gotten with Mark so far. This entire episode, for the most part, was Mark. We see him in full gear. We see the badass that is Mark Spector. We see him get down with these three dudes on the rooftop, and we see that he's a man of action. We see that those mercenary skills come into play.
Man, I know we have discussed this in the past as well. I think it's so nice how they introduced the show with Steven as the main character, as the first character that we get introduced to. And then now all of a sudden we're witnessing a full-blown Mark Spector episode. We still get a lot of Steven, but Mark, up until this point of the episode, was just essentially the main focus. And it's so cool. It is so cool to see the dynamic between him and Steve and the Moon Knight. And Mr. Knight, you said his name was, right?
Yes, Mr. Knight.
Oh, man, I was worried with the first two episodes that it would be too much Steven, as much as I like his character, and not enough of Mark. But I think this episode completely corrected the course in my perspective.
I agree. That was also one of my concerns as well. Mark Spector is the more interesting alter there for me, and we definitely got him in spades this particular episode as he chases down these three guys in Cairo trying to figure out where Amit's tomb lies. We see him at odds with Steven a little bit. Steven is not exactly happy with the fact that, as far as he's concerned, his body is being used to run around and beat people up and kill people. And we start to see this kind of battle back and forth with who we think is Steven. But come to find out, we get to a particular part in this chase sequence where Mark is dude's neck in one hand and blade in dude's chest in the other. And he looks down and he says, "Steven, what did you do?" And we hear Steven say, "That wasn't me." So we are now aware that there's another altar, a third altar, occupying the system that is Mark and Steven. And if you're familiar with the comics at all, that altar is more than likely Jake Lockley, who moonlights as a cab driver and is the more violent of the three altars.
Interesting. I did not know that piece. It's gonna be interesting seeing how they're gonna like. So, one thing I noticed in this episode is that Mark started hesitating anytime that there was violence. It seemed like he always had Steven's voice in his head when there was violent stuff happening. I'd be interested to see if Steven has any effect at all on the Jake persona. But I did notice that this episode, and it was really interesting to see the character development and the growth between the connection between these two personas. And that was definitely one of the more interesting parts of the episode for me.
Absolutely. Seeing Mark be willing to let Steven take the reins from time to time. Obviously, and I'm sure it can be scary for him, not wanting to give up control when, Steven doesn't want to give it up either. So, fearing, you give Steven control, he's not going to give it back, or you might not be able to get it back, especially when Layla's freedom is also on the line, from what we know. Moving past the revelation that there is a third altar, Khonshu kind of comes back into the picture. And, they're with the death of all three of these guys that they were chasing down for information, they're kind of left wondering, like, how are we going to figure this out now? And Khonshu comes up with the idea of moving the moon in front of the sun, causing an eclipse to capture the attention of the gods, the other gods, to kind of try and get them to intervene, which leads to one of the best sequences I've seen on television, in my opinion. Before we even get to that, it begs some questions, right? So the fact that the other gods are not intervening raises a lot of questions for me. This Amit is supposedly this big bad that they put away, XYZ, yada yada yada. They're aware of what Khonshu is doing. They seem fully aware of that Khonshu is running around doing stuff, right?
Yeah.
Someone is running around as the avatar of Amit and doing all these things, racking up a body count, right? But they're not intervening against this person who's trying to release this person that they encapsulated. That raises a lot of questions for me.
I think it was. Sufficiently explained in the episode. It seems like Khonshu has a bit of a reputation problem, especially when it comes in relation to all these other gods. It seems like he was by Harrow specifically. He was painted out to be a very abusive individual, and Harrow's character used that as used Stephen and Mark as proof of that. Instead of a correlation. I think that entire sequence, I will agree with you, it was probably the best part of the episode. Seeing Oscar Isaac's character just, oh my god, his acting was phenomenal this episode, man.
Insane. Absolutely insane.
He deserves awards. He deserves awards.
He deserves something.
Yeah. I don't know, man. I think it was interesting that the gods seemed to be hyper aware of everything that Khonshu was doing, but they seemed oblivious to the fact that Harrow is essentially Amit's avatar and trying to bring her back. It seems like they have very selective attention spans, and it makes me question whether they're part of the whole thing, honestly. I don't understand the council's motivations quite yet. It did seem like some of the avatars themselves seemed to be very empathetic towards Stephen and Mark, which makes me think that there's something complicated going on there. No one really offered help except for one character.
Yes, and just to pedal back real quick on that sequence that we're talking about, the trial is really what it is. At this point now, we have seen Oscar Isaac play 3 characters in one show. He has played Mark Spector, he has played Stephen Grant, and he has now played Khonshu. And I feel like I've said it every single episode now. Someone said that Oscar Isaac is the best thing to happen to the MCU since Robert Downey Jr., and I cannot agree more. We have given this man praise every single episode, and this episode, he definitely completely earns that praise yet again. And that's just for that's just my quick touch on that. Back onto the plot, we do see Harrow kind of sway the council there, that consists of various other Egyptian gods and goddesses. We see him sway the council there a little bit and say, like, hey, Khonshu is kind of jacked up. Like, he abused me, which in my mind is probably more of a mental thing, because essentially he's done the same thing to Mark. He abused me, and he made me into this person that I didn't want to be. And then besides that, now he's using this person who has DID. They don't ever explicitly say that it's DID. I'm actually pretty sure at this point that Mark isn't even aware that he has specifically DID. But he's taken this person that is ill, that needs help, and is basically exploiting him to be his avatar when he should probably use somebody of, a little bit more sound mind. And that's enough to sway the council. And again, you touched on it a little bit, I touched on it a little bit. I do think it's odd that the council seems so oblivious to what Harrow has going on. And even in the sense where he says, like, oh, I'm just out visiting the sands. If that's a crime, then millions more have also committed the same crime. Like, it just does not make sense to me how oblivious they are to him. Maybe these Egyptian gods aren't omnipresent or omnipotent, as omnipresent, omnipotent as we think. But I mean, we'll touch on this in a later part of the episode. Given some things that Khonshu is capable of, I find it very hard to believe that these gods are are not as omnipresent as we would think them to be.
Right, right. I completely agree with that. I think I don't know. I feel like so. First of all, Haru's plea, his perspective and his debate was so powerful. As someone who has been affected by difficulties with mental health in the past, and being around other people who have also had similar issues, seeing him target the abuse that Khonshu basically inflicts on all of his avatars, I can't sit here and say that I kind of wasn't. I was swayed a little bit by his argument. I'm like, Jesus, man, he has a point. He has a point, especially when it comes to how cruel Khonshu can be to the people that he says he's trying to protect. But to your point about the council, I don't know, man. It feels like if Amit is such a threat, the way that everyone is saying that she is, you would think that they would at least try to investigate further instead of just believing this guy's testimony.
Well, I would assume it's hubris, right? So I mean,
Right.
first off, having a conversation about hubris and talking about gods and given fiction, it just all adds up. They think, how could that be? How could that even be a thing? Like, really, bro?
Yeah.
Amit, he's trying to raise Amit. Shut up, bro. Like, you just want some attention. Like that is typical god behavior across fiction that we always see. The gods are always in denial. They are infallible. They cannot, that what they have done is untouchable. There's no way that this man could be going after Amit. What are you talking about, bro? How about you release the mentally ill person, and chill. Why don't you just come chill out in the other verse or wherever he said that they were at right now. But something that I think gets glossed over in that conversation during that trial is how Khonshu said that he chose to stay behind and help the humans, as the others kind of just live out in their kind of like nether realm that they exist in. You wouldn't expect someone that we've gotten to know as well as we've gotten to know Khonshu to say something like, I stuck behind to help the humans. Like, I didn't give up on them. So, I think there's more to Khonshu than we're giving him credit for. I think just as any abuser, I think that he does need to kind of be held accountable for his decisions and what he's done a little bit, but at the same time, I do think that there's something more that we're not entirely getting from Khonshu that even at the end of the episode we haven't gotten yet.
Oh, I agree with you. I agree with you. And we're also not getting that from Mark as well. I think this episode set up a lot of different threads that they can pull in the next couple episodes. And that makes me very excited. But going back to what you were saying about Khonshu and how you wouldn't expect him to be the one who wanted to help save humankind, I do want to bring up the point that I think in this episode, throughout the entirety of the episode from the beginning to the end, Khonshu was at his most likable, at least from my perspective.
Agreed.
I,
Go ahead. I'm
what?
sorry.
Oh no, I was basically done. I was just gonna say that Khonshu, he's kind of grown on me, and it seems like he's just a lot more complicated than we were led to believe in the first couple episodes. Even this other avatar coming up to Mark and being like, "Oh, it's funny. My God is saying that there was a time not so far in the past that Khonshu liked listening to her music." You know, and it's interesting world building that we've gotten.
Agreed. Moving on into the story, we see Mark reunited with Layla after being told by I've forgotten Hathor. The goddess Hathor is the one that gives him some more information as to where they can find Amit's tomb. And in that process, he's reunited with Layla, and we get a little bit more of that dynamic. We haven't seen Mark and Layla together yet. We've seen Steven and Layla. So having Mark there interacting with her and getting that character building, I think leading up to the confrontation, I don't think there's a whole lot to talk about there, except that we do get to see how they are with each other in the relationship. You get to see that there is some chemistry there, as well as we get some backstory about, who what Mark really was trying to achieve by leaving her behind. And I think they have really good dynamic. But leading into the fight scene with the men on horses, specifically going forward, I don't mean to be presumptuous, but I'm not entirely sure if you are familiar with Moon Knight in the comics, but they end up squaring off with what is the dude's name? Like, Jesus, pardon. I'm trying to remember the character that they played. The not the arms dealer, the antiquities dealer that they go to meet. Anton Mogart, that's his name. Pardon, I had to kind of pull it up. They go to meet up with him to find this sarcophagus that has the constellation location of Amit's tomb. And the antiquities dealer is played by Gaspard Ullier, who passed away prior to the release of Moon Knight. So much given rest in peace to Gaspard Ullier. He also played the young Hannibal Lecter in Hannibal Rising. If you haven't seen that or some of his other work, he was a fantastic actor. And once again, he played a fantastic role here in Moon Knight. So much respect to him and rest in peace to Gaspard. Leading into the first real Moon Knight fight scene that we get to see, prior to which Harrow arrives and does a little bit of a dump on us about, some of the things that have happened in Mark's past. We more or less get the hint that Mark Spector, or the system that is these altars, is responsible for Layla's father's death.
Yeah, I thought that was definitely an interesting tidbit, and it seemed to sow some distrust in Layla with her relationship with Mark. It was interesting to see Harrow appear when he did. That being said, I kind of expected it. I think everyone kind of did. But seeing him basically come in there and just flaunt the godliness, just flaunt the reality of these so-called myths to this antiquities dealer, it was interesting to see how effective Harrow's character is with convincing people and just persuasion. He is the best cult leader that I think we've seen in the MCU.
Oh, 100%. He's confident. He knows what he's doing. He knows where he needs to be at all times. Like, he has an overarching understanding of everything that's going to happen. From when Khonshu called the eclipse, to later on in the episode, which we'll be getting to in just a moment, to knowing that he needed to be in this place. He seems to be more omnipresent than the gods, which is, I think, rather telling. But it's interesting to me. Moving on, this leads to a confrontation with Mogart and his men, which finally we get to see a full-on action sequence with Moon Knight, and it is everything I've ever wanted it to be. It's so good. The fight choreography in this scene, chef's kiss.
Man, let me tell you, what I love the most about that entire fight sequence, not only was Moon Knight such a freaking badass in a way that we haven't seen, at least up until this point, we also saw some Mr. Knight thrown in there. And just the transition between Moon Knight and Mr. Knight, like, oh my god, man. That fight sequence had it all. It had all the action you could want. It had all the intense emotional moments where you're like, oh crap, what's about to happen next with Layla potentially getting killed. That wasn't ever going to happen. But the potential of it was definitely there. But you also had the comedic relief with Mr. Knight's character and just Steven being like, oh my god, no, I tap out, Mark, come back in. It's, man, that was the best scene in the entirety of the show so far. I think even more so than the council and the trial, now that I think about it.
I couldn't agree more. Actually, I disagree with that. It's not my favorite scene in the whole episode, but it is a damn good one. Just to see him, oh man, right. just to see him go off, and he fights just like he does in the comics. He just tanks. He doesn't care.
Right.
A spear through the chest, all of this stuff. He does not care. He tanks the damage. He's going to run through you like a force of nature. And it was amazing to see him like that. And even just that brief appearance of Mr. Knight telling everybody, all right, calm the F down, everybody relax, and then boom, the spear through the chest. Okay, Mark, take it back, like, Mark, please. Like, the hilarious moment in the episode, and seeing Moon Knight really be Moon Knight, and seeing some actual fighting for once. Admittedly, that's been my gripe for the last 2 episodes. It's been a little slow. MCU, come on, we got to ramp that up a little bit. I knew it was coming, so I was patient, but like, just to finally get it, much love from me.
Man, listen, they were building up the same way that the Utopian Revolt and OG Goblin DCEU has to build up to have that impact, you know?
There we go.
And I think the fact that these 3 episodes kind of culminated into that fight sequence, it made it pay off that much more. Seeing him use his cape as a freaking shield to protect Layla, but also to protect himself.
Yep.
And also to just ricochet bullets back to the freaking villains. Like, holy crap, man. It was so cool through and through.
He went off, and I think another thing that's a big favor for me there was it was a different level of violence for the MCU. We're seeing spears go straight through this dude. We're seeing him take bullets. We're seeing him he basically broke someone's arm with a tap. It was literally boop, it's a different level of violence. I mean, even earlier in the episode, to see a full machete, a Bowie knife, just impaled into somebody's chest. These are things you're not going to see in your regular MCU. Yeah. So this is great for me because it's all I ever want. I just want a little bit of violence, a little bit of the ultra violence, if you will. And moving past that, because really we could stay on this fight scene for all night long, but we're getting towards the end. We see Steven take back the reins. They manage to get these pieces to this map. We find that it is a constellation of the stars. You can use the stars to track where you are in the world. And this map is about, I believe they said, about 2,000 years old. And of course, Mark does not interpret that, but well, he does. But we find that he needs to revert back to Steven, and it takes a little bit of coercing, but we do get Steven back, and Steven just runs straight into it, and he pulls up that map and he says, look, this is where we would be 2,000 years ago, but the stars aren't aligned the same, so we have no way of telling based off this map. And this is where Khonshu presents himself again in this episode, and he says, I remember that night, and I can move the sky back, but it will come at a cost. And if you remember previously in the episode, they said, he said, if I anger the gods enough, they'll entomb me in stone. And that is what this ends up leading into. But that leads into my favorite moment of this episode. I have to admit, watching Mr. Knight and Khonshu, something about watching that happen. First off, the cinematography was astounding, mind-blowing even, but something about that hit something inside of me that I really can't explain. I'm a lover of film, I'm a lover of cinema, and there are very few moments that I can think of in film or TV that have given me this feeling of like, this is what I live for, and something about that moment triggered inside for me. And I think it was beautifully shot. And same thing, I said it twice watching it the first time, I said it watching it the second time. The amount of existential dread that must go through the people that live in the Marvel Cinematic Universe they all have to be going through therapy. Literally, you're just chilling at home, you're out with the boys, you're having a drink, and then all of a sudden, mind you, a celestial being just popped out of the water maybe like 5 years ago and is currently just like chilling in the ocean, and boom, the stars just like completely open up and you see everything. And just how do you live? How do you live in that world? How do you
Oh man,
exist as a person? I don't know.
Oh my god, it's traumatizing. Like you said, they must have like really good infrastructure over there in that universe.
Really
But
good
to run
healthcare.
it back for a sec. Oh yeah, really good healthcare. It wouldn't be me as an American. Okay, moving past that. Going back, just a little bit. I want to issue a warning to Mark. Mark, Steven is about to steal your girl, bro. Steven is about to steal your girl.
Yes, he is.
My God,
Yes, he is.
that scene where Layla kind of just walks up to Steven and starts just looking at him with a sparkle in her eye. She fell for the dude hard,
Oh yeah.
hard.
Oh yeah.
And it's going to be interesting seeing how that kind of plays out into the future of these episodes. But going back to that scene where Khonshu and Steven, not Mark, Steven, were moving these stars, it was powerful, man. It's hard to really put into words the feelings that it evokes. It's very much nostalgic, and it's very much the core of what I find to be great in the film industry. Period. It captures a sense of wonder that nothing else, no medium except for maybe video games, can kind of immerse you in. Seeing the different shots of different points in the world as this was happening, seeing people's reactions, hearing Khonshu talk about all these things while doing it was such a wondrous thing. And damn, this is what the third scene that we've talked about in this episode alone that we mentioned were like some of the biggest things, best things that we've seen in Disney Plus or just in storytelling in this format. Period. What an episode! What a fucking episode! It's still taking a while just to process how great this episode was. And I'm going to reiterate, 5 geeks out of 5 geeks. The only other thing that I've given that review score was the Batman. And both of them have elicited such an emotional response where I get passionate talking about this to the point where I start losing my own train of thought. It's such a beautiful thing, man. And Moon Knight is here to stay. Moon Knight is the future of the MCU.
It better be. Just like the Batman should be the future of the DCEU.
Right.
Moving towards the very end of the episode, we do see the gods encapsulating Khonshu in stone, and he tells Steven before he's fully gone, tell Mark to free me. And from there we assume, based purely off of visuals, that he loses the powers of the Moon Knight. And that's just based off of a visual. And that raises questions as well. Just coming towards the end of the episode, one of the quick questions that I will say is raised by that, we see that we would assume that Amit is also encased in stone, but Haro has access to her power. So now you have to ask, will Mark and Steven, will the system have access to that power as well, or is he powerless completely? And if he is powerless completely, I do think that, not that we are going to dive into it too much, as we are way over our time for the first time ever, I think that raises the question, is Amit really the one supplying Haro with his power? The god of judgment is typically not Amit in Egyptian mythology. So there have already been some questions raised, but now we really are living in a world where I don't think that this is going to play out the way that it plays out. And if all reports that I've been reading about episode 4 are true, which we will find out in just a few short days, actually, episode 4 is going to completely change our perception of the last 3 episodes of this show.
Interesting.
If you know anything about Moon Knight, if you know anything about Mark Spector, if you know anything about Stephen Grant, they are not the best storytellers. And that is all I'm going to say about that. But
my God.
I think there is a reason that when the big influencers were shown the show, and when the media was shown the show, they were only shown up until episode 4. A lot of people have been wondering what episode 5 and 6 are going to be, but we are going to have to find out just how shattering episode 4 is going to be on our next episode of Geeks and Goblins. Utopian Revolt, what do you have to say to the people as we head on out of here? Tell them where they can find you and tell them what you have to say.
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter, Utopian Revolt, same way it's spelled over here. You can now find me on my own channel on Twitch on Wednesday nights at 9:30 p.m. I'm going to be basically playing Mass Effect Legendary Edition for a while. Sorry, what was that? Yeah, I saw you fall down a little
No,
bit.
I just said, ooh!
Yeah, man. Yeah, this has been a long time coming now. Launched last Wednesday. Appreciate you guys would hop on. That being said, you can always catch me here on Geeks and Goblins on Saturday nights, man. And I guess I want to leave this episode with one very hot take.
Okay.
And here's a hot take. I think that Sony has already won the content wars. We just don't know it yet.
All right. I'll let you have your hot take. I'm not going to say anything about it, even though I think it's wrong. But I'm not going to say anything about it. Thank you for your hot take. Actually, yes, I will give a hot take. I think you're wrong. That's my hot take. Guys, you can find me over on Twitter at OG Goblin Games, and over here, I mean, if you're here, you're here. You already know where you can find me on here, so I don't even really need to say it. But you can also find me over on Instagram at OG Goblin GG. Honestly, I say it every stream. If you Google OG Goblin, you will find me. I'm happy to say I've finally been Googleable. That's really cool to say that you're Googleable. Not my full name, but just the OG Goblin. It's pretty freaking cool. Right. But with that said, everybody, thank you again for another fantastic episode of Geeks and Goblins. What we're going to talk about next week, we don't know. We know we're going to talk about Moon Knight, but other than that, we don't know. And actually, real quick, can I just give you some excitement really quick? Can I just let you know where we're at?
Yeah.
If we're at episode 4. We are technically 2 episodes away from the release of Multiverse of Madness, as the last episode of Moon Knight comes out the day before the release of Multiverse of Madness.
Oh, man. We got some great content coming up.
Technically, bro, if you go see the midnight release of Multiverse of Madness, by the time you get home, you can watch episode 3 of Moon Knight.
Oh, man.
I think my math is wrong on there now that I'm sitting back thinking about it. But either way, enjoy that shit. Just to give you some perspective. But I'm gonna press the end button now, man. We're gonna send the people away. Thank you guys, as always, for tuning in to Geeks and Goblins. I have been OG Goblin. This has been the lovely Utopian Revolt. Go follow him. We're on the bum rush to get this man to affiliate. Go follow him right the fuck now. It's more of an order and less of a request. I will see you all on the next one. I will see you all personally on Monday. Utopian Revolt, when do you stream? Wednesdays?
Wednesday nights, man, 9:30 p.m.
And you will see him again Wednesday night at 9:30 p.m. Thank you guys for tuning in. As always, we will see you on the next one. Stay peace!